The wedding invitation never came. I wasn't expecting one, not really, but its absence still stung. My mother's text message was almost worse than no communication at all. Oliver says you make everyone uncomfortable. It's better this way. His future in-laws are very important people. I stared at my phone, sitting in my small office at the back of Crystal Lake Resort. Through the window, I could see workers setting up for yet another luxury wedding. Ironically, my brother's wedding, though he had no idea. At 32, I was the black sheep of the Mitchell family. While my younger brother Oliver had followed our father's path into investment banking, I had chosen a different route. Thrown your life away, as my father liked to say, by going into hospitality management. You'll be serving drinks to real businessmen, Oliver had sneered when I took my first hotel job. Is that what you want? What they didn't know, what they had never bothered to learn, was that I had plans. Big plans. While they were busy looking down their noses at my service industry career, I was learning everything I could about luxury hospitality. Every job, from dishwasher to front desk to events coordinator, taught me something valuable. And now, 10 years later, I owned Crystal Lake Resort, the most exclusive wedding venue in 3 states. Not that my family knew. The purchase had been through a holding company, the paperwork carefully structured to keep my name private. As far as they knew, I was still working as an events manager at some lowly hotel. My assistant Sarah knocked on my door, interrupting my thoughts. Ms. Mitchell, your brother's fiancée is here for the final walkthrough. She's early. I smiled. Of course she is. Catherine Windsor doesn't wait for anyone, does she? Catherine was exactly the kind of woman my family would love. Old money, perfect pedigree, and a personality as warm as an iceberg. She had booked Crystal Lake Resort through her wedding planner, having never met the owner. Today would change that. Tell her I'll be right out, I said, straightening my designer suit. Oh, and Sarah, make sure all the contracts are ready. I watched through my office window as Catherine paced the lakeside pavilion, her Louboutin heels clicking on the marble tiles. She was pretty in that polished socialite way, all smooth edges and practiced grace. Her wedding planner, Miranda, hovered nearby with a tablet full of checklists. Taking a deep breath, I stepped out of my office. Time to meet my future sister-in-law. Mrs. Windsor, I called out, using her preferred formal address despite her young age. Welcome to Crystal Lake Resort. I'm Elizabeth Mitchell, the owner. Catherine turned, her practiced smile freezing as she processed my last name. Mitchell. Any relation to? Oliver Mitchell. Yes, he's my brother. I watched the color drain from her perfect complexion. Though I understand I'm not invited to the wedding. Miranda, the wedding planner, nearly dropped her tablet. I don't understand. You're the owner. But the contracts were signed under Crystal Lake Holdings. A necessary business arrangement, I explained smoothly. Some clients might be uncomfortable knowing a woman my age owns their premium venue. Better to let them focus on the property's reputation rather than its owner. Catherine's fingers tightened around her Hermes bag. Does Oliver know that his embarrassing older sister owns his dream wedding venue? No, he doesn't. Not yet. You can't, she started, then caught herself. This is highly unprofessional. We have a contract. I pulled out a folder from my leather portfolio. About that contract, our legal team has discovered some concerning issues that need to be addressed. Issues? Miranda stepped forward, her face pale. Everything was reviewed by our lawyers. Yes, but they might have missed the clause about owner's discretion regarding venue services. I smiled, channeling Catherine's own brand of cold politeness. You see, as owner, I have final say over which events we accept. Catherine's composed facade cracked. You wouldn't dare. Do you know who my father is? Charles Windsor, CEO of Windsor Financial. Yes, I know. Just like I know about the merger talks between Windsor Financial and my brother's firm. This wedding is as much business as pleasure, isn't it? She took a step back, her heel catching on the marble tile. What do you want? Want? Nothing. I just think it's time for a family reunion. A proper one. My phone buzzed, a text from Oliver. Catherine says you're causing problems. Back off or I'll have father deal with you. I laughed softly, showing the message to Catherine. Still running to daddy for everything, isn't he? Some things never change. Name your price, she said through gritted teeth. Everyone has one. I walked to the edge of the pavilion, looking out over the crystal clear lake that had given the resort its name. You know, My brother and my parents all think I'm a failure. They imagine me living in some cramped apartment, scraping by on tips and regret. The truth is, I've built something extraordinary here. The venue? Miranda started cautiously. It's booked solid for the next 3 years. The waiting list is incredible. Yes, it is. I turned back to Catherine. Your wedding is in 2 days. You've invited half of New York's financial elite. Canceling now would be embarrassing. Catherine's face had gone from pale to red. You vindictive by language, I cut her off. This is a classy establishment. Now here's what's going to happen. You're going to call Oliver and tell him to come here. Now, then we're all going to have a little chat about family, respect, and consequences. And if I refuse? I shrugged. Then I exercise my right to cancel your booking. I'm sure the plaza has an opening. Oh wait, they're booked through next year. The Pierre perhaps? Though their lake view isn't quite as spectacular. With trembling hands, Catherine pulled out her phone. I heard Oliver answer on the first ring. Baby, what's wrong? Has she threatened you? You need to come to the venue, Catherine said, her voice tight. Now, and bring your parents. I sat in my office, watching through the window as Oliver's black Mercedes pulled into the parking lot. He stepped out, looking exactly as I remembered, perfectly tailored suit, carefully styled hair, and an expression of entitled anger. Our parents emerged from their car moments later, mother in her signature pearls, father with his perpetual frown. Sarah appeared at my door. They're asking for the owner. Rather forcefully, I might add. Let them stew for a few minutes, I replied, enjoying the sight of my family pacing anxiously by the lakeside. Sometimes anticipation is the best revenge. Through the window, I could see Oliver trying to comfort Catherine, while our parents spoke in angry whispers. Father kept gesturing at the resort, probably calculating its value and wondering how his failure of a daughter could possibly be connected to such a prestigious property. Finally, I stood up, smoothed my suit, and picked up a thick folder of documents. Showtime. As I stepped out onto the pavilion, the look on their faces made the last 10 years of dismissal and disdain almost worth it. Almost. Hello, family, I said quietly. Welcome to my establishment. Shall we discuss the wedding? The silence that followed my greeting was deafening. My father was the first to recover, his face turning that familiar shade of purple I remembered from childhood confrontations. What is the meaning of this? He demanded. Where is the owner? You're looking at her, I replied calmly, watching his expression shift from anger to disbelief. Crystal Lake Resort is my property, has been for the past 3 years. Oliver stepped forward, pulling Catherine behind him protectively. Impossible. You can't afford a place like this. You're just an event manager. I smiled. Was an event manager. Now I own the most exclusive wedding venue in the tri-state area. Funny how perceptions can be deceiving, isn't it? Elizabeth, my mother cut in, her voice sharp with disapproval. If this is some kind of joke. Oh, it's no joke. I opened my folder and began distributing documents. Here are the ownership papers, profit statements for the last 3 years, and of course, Oliver and Catherine's wedding contract. My father snatched the papers, his hands shaking as he scanned them. I saw the exact moment he realized everything was real. His eyes widened, and for the first time in my life, he looked at me with something other than disappointment. How? He whispered. Remember that worthless inheritance from Grandma Rose? The one you all laughed at because it was just her old lake house. I gestured to the resort around us. I had a vision for this property that none of you could see. While you were busy mocking my career choices, I was learning every aspect of the hospitality industry, making connections, building a reputation. The lake house, my mother murmured. But the renovations, the expansion. All funded by my work and smart investments. Turns out the hospitality industry can be quite profitable when you understand it. But you never bothered to ask, did you? Too busy bragging about Oliver's latest promotion or Catherine's family connections. Catherine stepped forward, her composure cracking. What do you want? Money? Recognition? I laughed softly. Money? I made $3 million in profit last year. Recognition? The resort was just featured in Luxury Venues magazine. No, what I want is something much simpler. I want you all to understand exactly what you've done. And what's that? Oliver sneered, but I could see the uncertainty in his eyes. You excluded me from your wedding because you thought I was an embarrassment. You were ashamed of my career. My choice is my life. And now? I spread my arms wide, encompassing the pristine grounds, the elegant pavilion, the crystal clear lake. Now you're begging to celebrate your perfect day at my establishment. We'll find another venue, my father declared, but his voice lacked conviction. 2 days before the wedding, with half of Wall Street's elite on the guest list, I shook my head. Good luck with that. Besides, what would you tell them? That you had to change venues because the owner is your embarrassing daughter. The color drained from Oliver's face. He understood the implications, the whispers, the questions, the potential impact on his carefully cultivated image. Name your price, he said through gritted teeth. My price? I pretended to consider. How about an apology, a real one, from all of you, for years of condescension, dismissal, and shame? You're blackmailing us, Catherine accused. No, I'm teaching you a lesson about judgment and consequences. You see, I could cancel your booking right now. The contract gives me that right, but I'm not going to do that. They all stared at me, confused. Instead, I'm going to give you exactly what you wanted, the perfect wedding at the perfect venue. And during the reception, when everyone is commenting on how beautiful everything is, you'll have to live with the knowledge that your embarrassing sister made it all possible. My mother stepped forward, her eyes wet with tears that I wasn't sure were genuine. Elizabeth, sweetheart, we never met. Yes, you did. I cut her off. You meant every dismissive comment, every excluded invitation, every moment of shame. But that's okay, because while you were all busy looking down on me, I was building something extraordinary. I turned to Sarah, who had been quietly observing. Please show the wedding planner to the bridal suite. We need to review the final arrangements. Wait, Oliver called as I started to walk away. That's it. You're just going to let the wedding proceed? I stopped and turned back. Of course, I'm a professional after all. The wedding will be perfect. Every detail exactly as planned. And every time you look at your wedding photos, every time you remember your special day, you'll have to remember that it happened here, at your failure of a sister's resort. The next 2 days passed in a blur of activity. True to my word, I ensured everything was flawless. The flowers were pristine, the catering exquisite, the service impeccable. I stayed in my office during the ceremony, watching through the window as Oliver and Catherine exchanged vows under the lakeside pergola. During the reception, I finally emerged, dressed in a designer gown that cost more than Oliver's first car, as circulated among the guests. Many of them knew me, not as Oliver's sister, but as the owner of Crystal Lake Resort. The looks on my family's faces as they watched Wall Street executives and society matrons greet me warmly were worth every moment of past pain. Elizabeth, Charles Windsor, Catherine's father, approached with a champagne flute in hand. I had no idea you were Oliver's sister. We must discuss hosting our annual charity gala here. I smiled graciously. Of course, Mr. Windsor. My team would be delighted to help coordinate that. From across the room, I saw my father watching the interaction, his expression a mixture of shock and dawning realization. He was finally seeing me as I truly was, not the failure he had imagined, but a successful businesswoman in her own right. Later that evening, as the party was winding down, Oliver found me by the lake. You could have canceled everything, he said quietly, made us all look like fools. Why didn't you? I sipped my champagne, looking out over the moonlit water. Because I'm not like you, Oliver. I don't mean to tear others down to feel successful. My revenge isn't ruining your wedding, it's making it so perfect that you'll never be able to forget who made it happen. He was quiet for a long moment. I underestimated you. We all did. Yes, you did. And that was your mistake, not mine. The next morning, I sat in my office reviewing the wedding photos our staff photographer had taken. Every image was perfect, the venue stunning, the couple radiant, the guests clearly impressed. At the bottom of the stack was a photo I hadn't expected, my parents standing by the lake, looking up at the resort with expressions of regret. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. We were wrong about you, about everything. Can we talk? I looked out at the lake, thinking about forgiveness, about family, about the difference between revenge and redemption. Then I typed my reply. Brunch on Sunday. We can start there. A week later, I received a letter from Catherine. Inside was a check for the wedding costs and a note. You could have ruined everything. Instead, you showed us what real class looks like. Thank you for giving us a perfect day, even though we didn't deserve it. I framed both the note and the check, hanging them in my office as a reminder that sometimes the best revenge isn't about destruction. It's about rising so far above others' expectations that they have no choice but to look up to you. Crystal Lake Resort continued to thrive. My family, slowly and somewhat awkwardly, began to rebuild their relationship with me. Oliver and Catherine became regular visitors, eventually hosting their first anniversary party at the resort. My parents started bragging about their entrepreneurial daughter to anyone who would listen. But I never forgot those years of dismissal and exclusion. They had shaped me, driven me, made me work harder and reach higher than I might have otherwise. In the end, their lack of faith in me had given me the greatest gift of all, the determination to prove them wrong. Now, when I interview potential employees, I always ask them about their dreams, their goals, their vision for the future. And when they tell me, I listen, really listen, because I know that sometimes the people others underestimate are the ones who will amaze you the most.